Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this is the 2019 iPad mini, or the 5th generation iPad mini. And it's really what a lot of people have been looking forward to, is just an updated version of the original. Now let's talk about the price, and then we'll talk about design, display, and other things. And you can see all of those time codes linked in the description, so you can jump around to whatever section you'd like to take a look at. Now the iPad mini starts at $399 for 64 gigabytes of storage, and then goes up to $549 for 256 gigabytes of storage. Also, if you'd like cellular data, you can add it for $129. So the highest priced iPad mini is $679. The memory is not expandable, so you can't update storage or anything like that. Now, the overall design is exactly the same as the previous generations of iPad mini. So the bezels are huge here, and for many people that's not a problem because the bezels are really where you can rest your fingers, and I think that was the idea. So if you want to rotate it, we can rotate it here and watch a movie, and our fingers will not be in the way. The same thing goes with reading it. Now, if you do hold it this way, you can keep your thumb off to the side, but you will probably overlap the screen a little bit if you're going to use it this way. But for most people, this design is something many people like. It has Touch ID, and it's probably the second generation version of it. They don't really say anything about it, but it seems plenty fast, and it's actually a clickable button. So it's not just a haptic touch button like we had on the iPhone 7 and newer. So it actually clicks, and it's a physical click. On the bottom, we have two speakers along with a lightning port. And then on one side, there's nothing at all. On the top, we have a little microphone along with a headphone jack, which is really nice to see that they kept that. And then we have our power sleep wake button. On the right side, we have our two volume buttons. So just like we had before, it seems to be identical as far as the physical characteristics. Now, as far as the display is concerned, this is actually a laminated display, and what that means is the glass is attached to the LCD underneath so that it looks like it's right on the screen, or it looks like the icons are right on the glass. Now, this is great for viewing, but it's bad for repairability. So if you want to repair one of these, it makes it much more difficult. Some people can separate it if you wanted to replace the glass from the display, but it's so hard to do. Most people replace the whole thing, which makes the repair cost go up. Now, the display itself is very nice. It's a 7.9-inch display diagonally. It's 2048 by 1536 with 326 pixels per inch. And it looks great. It's actually got a higher pixel density than many of the other iPads. It looks great. The touch responsive is great. And it goes up to 500 nits of brightness. So if I turn the brightness all the way up here, it's very bright. You could use this outside unless it's super sunny. But most of the time, this will work great for everyday reading or whatever you're using it for. Now, as far as the internal specs, we have the A12 processor with 3 gigabytes of RAM. So while 3 gigabytes may not sound like a lot, it's plenty for that processor along with iOS. And the battery inside is 19.1 watt hours. It will give you 10 hours of use. It's basically the same as any other iPad. Apple's very good about this. If you're watching video, you're probably going to get about 10 hours of constant use. Now, the iPad mini this time around gains Apple Pencil support, but it's not the new Apple Pencil, it's the first generation. Now, that's good and bad for a couple of reasons. So it's good because it's less expensive and comes in at around $100 for the Apple Pencil. It's bad because you still have to charge it through this lightning connector on the top, and it does work well, but it's kind of goofy to do. So if we slide over here, you can see the battery status of the Pencil and the iPad there, and it just gives you 62%. It does charge pretty quickly, no issues there. And the Pencil does work well. It's still touch sensitive or pressure sensitive and works fine. This does not have a 120 hertz display like an iPad Pro. So let me show you just how fast we can scribble without it lagging. This seems to keep up no problem. So I can go as fast as possible, and it doesn't really look like there's any lag. Maybe if I slowed it down, you'd see a little bit of lag, but just writing is really nice. Like any other iPad, it works really well, and the Pencil will let you kind of get more precision or fine pinpoint accuracy compared to using your finger. And I find it helpful in things like iMovie. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Now, as far as the cameras are concerned, they're pretty typical for iPads. They are not the iPad Pro cameras. The camera on the back is an 8 megapixel camera, and that has an f2.4 aperture and can only record in 1080p video. It's fine for most people, but it won't do 4K. The front-facing camera is pretty much what you'd expect on pretty much any iPad now. So if I turn it around, you'll see it's got face tracking and autofocus and everything like that. And it's 7 megapixels. It's got an f2.2 aperture and it records in 1080p as well. Looks pretty good. It's what you would expect, and it's basically the same front camera you get on the iPad Pro. Now, as far as the speakers are concerned, the speakers are the same that we've had in the iPads for a while. They do go nice and loud, and they work well, but they're nothing special. You don't have that stereo sound, so when you're using the iPad in landscape, you only have them coming out of the right side or the left side, depending on which orientation you're holding it in. And so it's okay. It's not great. I would recommend headphones or AirPods, something like that. That would really help. Now let's talk about the apps, and then we'll look at the benchmarks. So the apps are what you're going to see on any other iPad, but because you have that A12 processor, it's very, very fast. It's faster than the 2018 version for the most part. No issues here, and if you want to multitask, you can do that, of course. Just slide in another window, pull down, we can rotate. You'll see it just keeps up fine. No issues here if we want to move everything over. And it's very, very fast. I really appreciate that Apple's putting this same processor in pretty much every device. There's not much lag, anything like that. If you want to open the camera quickly, you'll get right in. There's not any issues. So you can kind of set aside the A12 processor and the RAM. It's going to perform as good as pretty much any iPhone or iPad out there, except for maybe the Pro, since that has a little bit more power on the graphics side. Now, speaking of the graphics side, games like Minecraft, I know I've used this quite a bit, but it's kind of a benchmark I've been using just to see how quickly things load. You'll see it's loading here. It doesn't take that long, of course, because it is newer. You'll see we can just zip right along here and create a world. And of course, it's not the most intensive game, but you'll see it loads pretty quickly. So there's no issues, and this is actually just a world being generated with nothing in it, but it does work fine. No issues here. And it's nice and fast and fluid, so that part's nice. Now, if you want to do something like 4K video editing, you can do that, no problem. Go into iMovie, go into My Movie. I'll rotate it to landscape here, go into edit. You'll see how fast it is. Everything I do, it doesn't seem to slow down. This was an iOS update video I did, and so if you want to just zip through it, no problem whatsoever. You'll see it's in 4K as well, so there's no slowdown whatsoever. It's just zipping right along, and if I wanted to export this, you can hit Done, Export, Save, 4K, and it will export, and it was that fast. So it may have already been done at some point. I don't know, but that was incredibly fast. So maybe it was just pre-rendered, and that was amazing, actually. So let's check photos and see if it's really there. And you'll see it's actually there exported. That was pretty incredible. I don't know if it pre-rendered it in the background or what, but wow, that was impressive. Maybe because it didn't have to make any changes. I don't know. So let's go into Geekbench and see what the benchmarks are like. Quite a few people asked for this. So we'll go into Geekbench. You'll see there's the version number, there's the OS, the processor, and about 3 gigabytes of RAM. We'll go into CPU, we'll run the benchmark, and all apps have been closed in the background, so there's nothing running, and we'll just let it run and see what it does. The Geekbench has completed, and we have 4,779 for single core and 11,261 for multi-core. So I think that's going to be plenty fast for most people. It's right along the lines of the latest iPhones, and we shouldn't have any issues there. So the iPad mini is for people that really miss that small tablet form factor. Personally, it's a little bit too small for me. I prefer the large 12.9 iPad Pro, so it's all about what one works for you best. So whichever size works for you, there's quite a few options now. There's the new iPad Air with the same exact specs as this for the most part. It's just a larger display. And then also you've got the Pros with the better speakers and things like that. And I'll have comparisons in the future, but there is enough iPads now that fit pretty much everyone's needs, everything from regular use to Pro use. So if the 7.9-inch display is great for you, then I would highly recommend this device. Also, you can get it pretty inexpensively compared to what Apple charges many times at different local electronics stores when they have them on sale. So while it's $399 to start, you may be able to find it for a better price, especially in a few months. So let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Are you picking up an iPad mini, or do you prefer a larger size iPad, or maybe even an older iPad? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description as I always do. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If not, the other one's okay too. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.